What's up, babes? How we doing? It's a break week. It's a tough week. Um, we'll be back next week, and I feel like we'll be back for a little while. I say that with no news of anything in mind. It just feels like we're kind of at a point where we're like about to wrap things up, and I think that a lot of the big panels that take time, and now that it's summertime, I'm hoping that they hit us with a lot of chapters in a row. Because my theory is starting to be wrong. I even gave Oda the benefit of the doubt in saying that Egghead would be done kind of beginning of summertime. Technically, I still have a couple weeks, but I don't think that thing's getting wrapped up as that soon. I mean, we're at the end of it, but it's not getting wrapped up until probably the end of summer at this point. But we'll see. That's not what we're talking about today, though. Funny enough, on that video that I made the other day, I thought about it because I started Water 7, and it was just so funny to me because Iceberg literally says that I'm gonna make this island float, and I made a video about how the island's gonna float. And I'm like, brother in Christ, it's just been a while. I guess it's just been a while. But what that island's gonna look like and what he has in mind is gonna come to fruition, hopefully pretty soon, with everything sinking. But what a call out! And that kind of brings me into the topic. What makes Water 7 as a whole arc so special? I just looked at the books to make sure. I talked about this in a previous video, but Water 7 technically is the entirety of it. Enies Lobby is a part of Water 7, but so is the Davy Back fights. That's a part of Water 7. And I kind of think that's a perfect like introduction to the arc, because it kind of brings this lightheartedness to something like we're about to get like really heavy. And I feel like that's the heaviest One Piece had gotten at that time, with Usopp and Luffy fighting, him leaving the crew, Robin abandoning them, everybody losing. I mean, because everybody they hadn't lost before like that. They hadn't lost before like that at all. And even when Luffy was losing, nobody was really seeing him lose. He was just kind of against Crocodile. He was just kind of getting back up and going. And the crew, like everybody wasn't just like disheartened from him taking an L. But then when everybody lost at the mansion at Water 7, it's like, oh shit. You get the introduction of Aokiji, which you're seeing the level of what an admiral is. And just so much of Water 7, you can tell it's good by this, is still like prevalent today. You still see that admirals are a problem. And if you place an admiral in that arc, it's just over. You place Kizaru, you place Akainu at that time in Water 7, and the story's over. The story's just over. But Aokiji's lazy justice. He also kind of has a horse in the race with Robin because he was such good friends with Saul, and that whole story with one of the best backstories. Honestly, it's tough to say, recency bias, but probably the best flashback to this point was Robin's with Saul, and it's just like so sad, and it gets sadder and sadder and sadder as you go throughout it. And it's like, holy shit, like the government is a bunch of assholes. We see the Gorosei play in this flashback. We see Spandam's dad and Spandam himself, which he was just a perfect, like, annoying character that you knew didn't have a lot of power, but he had all the say in the world. And don't even get me started with the villains, because the villains were fantastic. I mean, like, all of them. All of CP9 was top to bottom, lights out, great. And the closer you got to the top, you saw the more focus that Oda put into it and how great they all were. I think that ship building, like that yard and everything, was just a fantastic aesthetic to look at and to kind of just like admire at these ship builders that are also like kind of pirate-esque in the way that they fight. And then CP9 just bringing the bar up an entire another level. But the reason we love it so much, I feel like, is just it boils down to the fights. It boils down to the heart of it. That even when people are fighting like Luffy and Usopp, they can still come together and protect one of their crew. And once they say someone's a part of the crew, then that's what they mean. And with Robin deciding to leave to protect them and them finding this out, it's like, holy shit. And it's like you realize they weren't really like trying, like they didn't have a reason to fight. And it shows you that they get all this power and inner strength from having a reason to fight. And it's also, I mean, there's just so many firsts and so many things that are prevalent. Agua Laguna, we're still seeing water levels rise, and the importance of that started all the way back there. It was funny that they were going to go to Fishman Island from there, but that obviously didn't happen because of Thriller Bark and then Sabaody. But it's interesting to see that that was their plan literally right when leaving. Right when they get the Thousand Sunny, they're like, yeah, we should probably go. Mary too. Just the entire theme around what it means to be a crewmate and how important you are to the squad. And that includes the ship and just like saying farewell to them after the ship gets to see all of them come back together as a whole was sweet. It's like so sweet. Gear 2, Gear 3, which I find it interesting that those were obviously announced at the same time or released at the same time. But even back then and even now, I thought Gear 2 was way cooler than Gear 3. I was like, Gear 3 is all right, but like Gear 2 is the sauce. Like that fight without Gear 2 is boring. It's just not that entertaining, and he loses, but it's such a like fun spin on it. And I just remember reading that live and how exciting that was and awesome that was. And I was just like, how is he going to stack up? And it didn't matter because Lucci was still that dude. Still is that dude to this day. I mean, the fact that he's power scaling, that man's been in the training room, the weight room for sure. We see Ashura for the first time with Zoro, which is still prevalent. We see Diable Jambe with Sanji, which was, I thought, so cool at the time. I was like, he's like, I forgot what he says exactly. He's like, if the heaven is the food, then the devil is the spices or some shit like that. And I was like, that's a cool chef thing to say. The train scene, and they nailed the train. Like, train scenes and like just about everything, Thousand Year Door, One Piece. It's just like such an entertaining thing. You're just like, oh shit, they're on a train. He's going through the cars. And it was this fun like little level up. It reminds me of Spirit Gun, fucking Yu Yu Hakusho, just going through the towers, just that classic, like, on to the next, it's harder, on to the next, it's harder. And that's a fucking blast with, there was just so much at stake the entirety of the arc. As soon as Robin leaves, it's like, are we going to get Robin back? Is Usopp ever going to come back? Because he's kind of just, like, hanging out with us. The entire world government is on our ass in this place that still is prevalent because that's probably where Imu sank something before, because that ditch is ginormous and very similar to the Lucia Kingdom. But there were just so many parallels that I was drawing to what we're seeing now. It's just hard not to absolutely love that arc. It's still, in my opinion, the peak of One Piece. I think that One Piece has done a lot of fantastic stuff since. I think Gear 5 is awesome. I think what we're seeing now is baffling. Just the like peak of combat, powers, world building and solving, and it's all happening right now. But still, I look back at that and I'm just like, this just had a different spin to it, even down to the art style, because I'm reading it like on paper and I'm like, this art style is fantastic. It's just so good. Frankie is an amazing character introduction. Another thing, like, not only does it have all these like super high points, the low points are like nowhere. Like, tell me a low point and I'll argue it. Like, there's no low points to this. None. There's like nothing that's low. All of the side characters are great. The Frankie family fits in perfectly. And the more you find out about them, it's like, it's so sweet. And you're like, Frankie's even a better dude than we thought. All the shipwrights that go out there, not only do they have killer designs, but they're just like cool dudes. They're just like dudes that are down to scrap, and they're like, yeah. The Buster call on top of Robin's flashback and that guy being annoying twat. It was just fun. It was just so nice to see Spandam get his shit slapped. Like, he got destroyed. He got the whole neck cracking thing going on that Robin loves to do to people. You never want to fight Robin. If there's a strat you want to fight, it's not Robin. She's changing your life for the worse. She's putting that back brace on you that I had like a year ago. But Water 7, Enies Lobby, it was just such an entertaining read every single time that I do it. The idea of a train, one of, if not still, my favorite city to this date. Oda just crushed it. Just absolutely crushed it. I still believe it to be the peak. We'll see if it ever really gets past. But in terms of just everything, there's just no low point. There's just nowhere where I'm reading where I'm like, this is kind of a lull. None of it. Even down to them escaping against Garp's introduction, seeing Kobe for what he is after we got the chapter stories of what they're doing. Just everything was just such a feel-good moment. And if you don't like it, you're crazy. But that's all I have for this week. Next week, we'll have a chapter. I don't know what it's going to be about. I don't know what Oda's cooking over there, but maybe Vegapunk will say something important. If not, I'm down to hear him continue to monologue and rattle on about whatever he would like. But until then, have a good weekend, babes. Peace.